All right, let's get this thing going. So, city council, our favorite time of the month, where all of the things from the committee meetings come together to finally get voted on. It's a very exciting time for our city. Um, rarely, rarely is it exciting. So this month, there, I feel like we're entering a phase where every month there's some big controversy that drags out the meetings a lot longer than they have to be. This month was no different. There was a lot of controversy over some parcels that the city of Stevens Point want to purchase out by Brulowski Road or off of Brulowski Road. I mean, the city's to blame for a lot of these controversies that arise. I think their poor communication is has a lot uh, of blame in that regard. But that's why I do this. That's why, if you just tune into this, you will have all of the answers that you need for everything you want to know about what's happening in Stevens Point government. So, we will go over that. That was the big thing. We'll spend most of the time talking about that in this stream. It was another long meeting, almost 2 hours. This stream will be like a half hour, if that, because uh, like nobody wants to spend a lot of time on this stuff. So, anyway, so it started off, it had a couple of presentations by the Boys and Girls Club. Apparently, they want the city to donate some space. They're requesting that. There's no action that the city took on this month, but I think they want the building that's right next door to the police station. I wasn't really clear on where the space, what space. I thought they already had that space, and apparently they do, but I guess it's for very specific functions within the Boys and Girls Club, and I guess they needed more space for some other things. So they came and they gave their request to the city and talked about all the great things that the Boys and Girls Club does. I don't think that's even just. I think everybody has like, even if you don't know anything about the Boys and Girls Club, you have a pretty positive impression of them and what they do. So I don't think that's really going to be an issue. I think somewhere down the line, that's going to be something that comes up at the city council, whether or not they want to donate some space, whatever. The city, they hold a lot of space, they hold a lot of buildings that doesn't get used. Who cares? It can go to anybody, any local charity. I'm totally fine with that. Not a big deal. Mid-State Independent Living Choices, I guess they're called. They came up and they gave a presentation. And they're just people that work with adults with disabilities, helping them to do independent living skills, things like that. I worked in that industry for almost 20 years. I know all about that. It is something that is important to the community, at least within the special needs community. Absolutely. I will go on record and say there is an awful lot of waste that happens in these industries. No doubt about that. But for specifically for the people that it helps, it's really a good thing. The A lot of these people do need a lot of help with a lot of different aspects of just daily life skills. That's what I did. Like, I was a daily life skill trainer. So basically, what I would do is I would put together these big reports for the company that I work for and say, this person needs help with blah, 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 blah. And I would list out all the things that they would need training for. And then it would be my job to basically implement that in some way. And what I will say about that is that's great for the people that you're helping. And look, it's basically like they don't pay anything. So it's basically volunteer work. That's kind of how I looked at it. But my God, the levels of red tape and bureaucracy that you have to go through just to get any freaking thing done is absolutely mind blowing. So, with literally anything that you want to accomplish, anything, like any simple task that you would want to do that, anybody who is not in this program could want to do themselves, they could do it in like a few days. This stuff took like oftentimes weeks on end to get done. So I wish that was more of an issue in the special needs community. Yeah, there's a lot of people that come forth and say, "Hey, we need, funding for this, that, or the other thing to help these people get by," which is true. But I think the flip side of that is definitely uh, just lessening the regulation and the bureaucracy and everything else that goes into these programs. But now I'm giving my own presentation to kind of counter the mid-state, or not counter, but to complement the mid-state presentation. So yeah, and I'm only doing that because I did that for 20 years. I know all about it. So I'm going to get off that. And anyway, let's move on. John Pavelski, who is the county exec, he he decided to make an appearance at the city council this month to give his own update, or I guess it was kind of, yeah, it was like information update on the proposed Justice Center. Finally, somebody gives some useful information. I know Dave Medine, who's a county board supervisor, he showed up at the city council meeting last month to give a presentation which was completely useless. Like, nobody found any value in that whatsoever. All he did was get up there and give reasons why the Justice Center needed to stay downtown, which I then found out later he actually has a lot of property interests downtown. So if it moved out of downtown, he stands to lose out on a lot of money, which of course that is going to be the motivating factor here. That's not to bag on Dave Medine for wanting to protect his investments. That's fine, but like, here's the thing, um, progressives, that I wish you guys would understand more, is that everything is driven by economic incentives. Literally everything. Everything that governments do, everything that individuals do, everything that corporations do is all driven by economic incentives. Nothing is done for your own goodwill. And I wish you guys would understand that. Because you would understand the world and how things work so much better if you just understood this simple point. You would understand that Pfizer is not acting in your best interest because they came out with a vaccine that you're all taking, which is fine. Like, I don't care. But to think that they're doing this for your good is a childlike naivety that I cannot even explain to you. They are not Santa Claus. They are doing it because they stand to make literally $1 trillion by doing this. Okay, that's all it is. So, like, that's just an example, but I wish you guys would understand this on a very basic individual level. That's so much of what happens in society, so much of uh, what incentivizes governments, even local governments. It's all driven by simple economics, okay? And that, like, I really wish progressives would understand that, because they would understand so much and they would stop living in a fantasy land. But anyway, that's a sidebar. John Pavelski shows up and he's actually going to give an update, something Dave Medine did not do. He talks about basically what the cost is going to be if the county delays on this. Again, like I said last month, the city government has no control over the Justice Center. Okay. Well, what did Pavelski call it? He called it the uh, master facilities plan, or the master plan facility, like, whatever. There's a special name that the county has for it. The thing is, the city has no control over the county's decision for what to do with this. All they can do is say, hey, let's keep it downtown, but the county's under no obligation to do that. They have to keep it in Stevens Point somewhere, but they don't have to keep it downtown. So John Pavelski comes up and he says, at the current rate of inflation, for every delay that the county makes on this master plan, on this facility, they are losing, I shit you not, this was what he quoted, and I find this astonishing, $26,000 per day. just in inflation, just what they're losing with inflation. $26,000 per day. This is he said, $175 million project. With inflation at 6%, he's being generous with that 6% number, but that's what he's using to calculate this. Every day that they delay, it's going to cost an additional $26,000 to build this thing in the future. $26,000 per day. That comes out to 850,000, almost $1 million per month. That is going to be an additional expense for this thing. That is wild. That is so much money. Now, I everybody had sticker shock when they heard the price tag on this thing. I think a lot of people were just like, "Oh my god." See, people had sticker shock back when they first started talking about this. Back in like the early 2000s, I think is the first meeting that I attended when they were talking about uh, the Justice Center. And, I was in my 20s and I went to this meeting and it was mostly people from the county, like the sheriff's office. And the question that I had at this meeting was because they talked about there was like no space for the inmates. They were already having space issues back in the early 2000s. And my question was, well, like how many people do you have sitting in county jail right now who are nonviolent offenders? And the answer I got was like two-thirds of them. So two-thirds of the people that were sitting in county were people who were nonviolent drug offenders, basically people who got busted with pot, or people who uh, engaged in some kind of nonviolent criminal activity, like fraud or something like that. Only a third of the people at the time, and this is back in the early 2000s, only a third of the people sitting in county were like actual violent offenders. Um, and so I was just like, well, why are you locking these people up? You know, uh, Naive 20-year-old me who didn't understand, who thought like reason was the guiding factor in how local governments maybe don't operate, but should operate. Before, I got older and understood that, oh, wait, there's a whole lot of other incentives going on here. It's not just like reason that's being employed here. So, yeah. And again, I suspect that number probably hasn't changed. So I think a lot of probably the overcrowding is again nonviolent offenders, probably just people that they locked up because they got busted with drugs or something like that. So, it is what it is, but $26,000 per day is what we're losing every day that they delay this Justice Center project. So, yeah, county board. I mean, whether or not you're going to build this thing, uh, should probably get on that. But, again, I don't make these decisions. And I know there's a lot of people at the county level that are just going to oppose this. If not for the sticker price, then for ideological reasons. I certainly voted against every effort to build the Justice Center, and again because like it's always been too much. So I think the original cost was like $25,000 almost 20 years ago. So, you're talking a fraction of what it's going to cost now. And I voted against it then because I'm like, well, that's too expensive. And in my mind, like if they just want more space to lock up more people for nonviolent crimes, as a libertarian, I don't like that at all. So I've always voted against it. But, putting aside my own biases towards something like this, look, if this is going to get built, this has to happen now because this is an incredible drain on resources. And this is exactly the kind of information that I want at these public meetings. So, uh, John Pavelski, kudos to you for showing up and giving us some actual information, not just getting up there and like giving your own, oh, we need to keep it here, we need to put it there because of my reasons. Yeah, like Dave Medine did. So he's actually got some numbers here. He says in order for the county to work with the city as far as keeping it downtown, he needs assurances from the city about certain things. Um, he gave a couple of examples. Business 51 was a factor in this, but the thing is, what he's saying is he needs to know that, or I guess people that support this need to know that the city isn't going to turn around and do a bunch of things that screw up this whole project. That's what he wants. He wants assurances from the city. So, I mean, that's fair. And he said in the future, the plan right now is that they're going to, have a bunch of their people meet with a bunch of city officials and kind of hash things out. You get the impression that Pavelski wants this thing done now um, because of what it's costing. So, yeah, it's, it's, like this whole thing is just such a mess. And again, it had to be done years ago, okay, to avoid all this. But this is where we're at. Pretty sure Pavelski wants. Oh, he said he wants decisions made by April 18th. April 18th, I believe, is the next. Maybe it's not. I was going to say the next council meeting, but I think they want to move forward with this by the 18th of April, which makes perfect sense. If they're losing this kind of money, if they're losing almost $1 million every month that they delay on this thing, yeah, you got to get on this. So he wants to hurry this along and get these decisions made by April 18th. That's his goal. Uh, Bureaucrats love to drag their feet on stuff and not make decisions, especially people in like the city council or the county supervisors. They're not quick decision makers, right? He's really pushing for them to make some quick decisions here. So we'll see what happens by that April 18th date. That'll be pretty interesting. The mayor even after the presentation says, yeah, this is going to pretty much be the biggest decision in a generation. He's not wrong. I said a couple months ago or a month ago that this is going to be the next hot button issue after the Business 51 thing. This is going to be the thing that everybody's debating. And I think a lot of it is going to be, you're going to see a lot of what you saw with the Business 51 thing, where you had people, of a particular ideological bend who are going to try and defer to studies and science to prove their point of view, to influence the decision making on this in some way. But again, I just want to stress that, a lot of the stuff that was shared during the Business 51 thing that was supposedly, studies and science based, where a lot of it was just bullshit. And I think you're going to see a lot of this come up with the new Justice Center. And I think it's going to be coming from a lot of people who just don't want this thing built. I'm just going to take a neutral stance on this. I don't give a shit one way or another, to be perfectly honest. I know that they're going to do this in some way or another, because the way that the old courthouse is right now, they're just not gonna stand for that forever, and they're gonna have to find something else to do. So I have no decision making authority. I just know how it's all gonna play out. So yeah, I guess if you want to keep it downtown, it's on city council right now to not just meet with them, but meet with them in good faith and actually try to work out a deal here. Or you're going to lose this, because again, the county has no obligation to, again, understanding incentives at play here. Pavelski wants to get this shit done. He's not going to put up with any feet dragging or insufferable demands, which is a lot of what comes out of the current city council, he's just not going to deal with that. And if you guys piss around too much and don't come into these meetings in good faith, I get the impression that Pavelski's not the kind of guy who's just gonna he's not gonna stand for it. He's just gonna move on and say, all right, to hell with you. We'll go and do it this way. It bugs me a little bit that, Melissa Johnson is going to be one of the people that are sitting in on these meetings and making these decisions. Because, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, I have no confidence in her ability to really understand something in good faith and make a decision in good faith. That's my own personal opinion. It is what it is. I hope she will. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they can get something done because again, Pavelski, he's going to get this done. You get the impression that he's just driven. He wants to get this thing done once and for all. We wait another 20 years on this and it's going to be $1 billion at the current rate of inflation to get this done. So, yeah, I mean, if it's going to get done, it's going to get done now. It's got to get done now, just from purely economic standpoint. So that's that. The big controversy this week with the city government, and it really shouldn't be a controversy, but it was. The city wants to purchase some parcels off of Brulowski Road, or off of like Old 18 Brulowski, like kind of that intersection. You know what I'm talking about. You've driven by there a million times. It's just farmland. There are 5 parcels that the city's looking at acquiring, and they want to buy that. And in the committee meetings, what they were saying was that they wanted to buy this for possible use in the future for, like, they want to put a fire station on the east side. They've been wanting to do that forever. Maybe a municipal garage, just a wide open space. You can do anything with it, really. So that's the problem. The problem is that they put together a conceptual design, and that's what they discussed in the committees. Just a concept that said, this is what we could potentially do with it. Well, the controversy comes when a lot of people who live in that subdivision right across the street see this conceptual design and they think this is what the city is actually going to do with this property, that this is what they intend to do with it. The thing is, anytime the city wants to buy a parcel of land, what they do is they put together these little concepts and say, well, this is what we could do with it. And it always sidetracks the discussion. Okay. The reason they do this is because if they just say they want to buy a parcel of land, like, that's not good enough for people. People want to know why they're buying the land. So they get in the habit of putting together these little concepts. But then what happens is people think this is what they're going to do with the land for sure. So it's a mess. It's a mess of communication. The city's been doing this for years and years and years. You can't really do anything about it. You just have to tell people who are going to show up at these county or at these city meetings to say, we don't like what you plan on using it for. You just have to explain to them, this is actually not what we're using it for. We just want to buy the land. This is just a concept design. I see this over and over and over again, watching these meetings. This always happens. In fact, I was at a meeting, I think this was about 2 years ago, and the city was there, and I think Ryan Karnowski was there, and they were talking about what they wanted to do with the old mall, like what's left of it, the old whatever it is now, JC Penney's, I don't even know. But they were talking about what they could do with that plot of land. So at this particular meeting, it wasn't a public meeting. It was like a meeting for a private organization. And they were explaining what they wanted to do with it. What they did was they had like a conceptual design in place that included, like, they wanted to put housing there, like low income housing or something like that. Again, this was like 2 years ago. So everybody at the meeting, and there were probably I don't know, 20, 30 people there. Immediately, they were like, "I don't like what you're planning on doing here. I completely object to this, blah, 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 blah." And like the mayor and Ryan would try to say over and over, well, this isn't what we're going to do with it. This is just a design to see like what could be used for it. At some point I was just like, guys, just stop talking about this design. It is meaningless. They just want to purchase the land. They have no intention of doing anything in particular. Anything that the city does plan on doing with any particular parcel of land will take them 10 years to do anyway. Okay. So stop being sidetracked. Like I actually at some point I was like, stop it. Okay. This is not helpful. Well, we saw it again here. So the city wants to buy this. We had a bunch of people show up who live in that subdivision behind the old Walmart on 10, the old uh, uh well, it's Dunham Sports now, like that strip right there. There's the subdivision back there, and a bunch of people from that subdivision well, like 3 of them showed up and, voiced concerns and said, "Hey, we don't like this idea. We don't want to deal with the noise. We don't want to deal with the traffic. We don't want to deal with the pollution, all the things that are going to come with that." And um uh, I know I wrote down like a bunch of their okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically it just came down to noise, traffic, pollution, and that was pretty much it. Now, the first lady that came up to speak, she she can't her first thing was, well, is it even going to do me any good to like show up to these meetings? Because you guys have a reputation for not listening to anybody. Hey, what's up? If you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in the chat. You can comment on this stuff too. I'm like, yeah, I know you'll have something good to say. Um, so she was she was trying to get other neighbors of hers to show up and say, voice their concerns too about it. But like again, they were all arguing for this conceptual plan that's neither here nor there. None of them raised concerns about the purchase of the property. It was just what the city had uh, put out there as like an idea for what they could do with it. That's what they had objections to. Again, totally derailed everything. They kind of wasted their time showing up to this, but it was funny to see this woman, come up and say, are they even going to listen to us? That is the reputation that city council has, right? It is a reputation for not listening to anybody, for just doing what they're going to do anyway. So people voice their concerns. Karnowski comes up and he says that Public Works has been looking for a plot of land for a long time. The only reason that they decided to like even consider this piece of property is because it came up for sale. That's all there was to it. It came up for sale. The city wanted to jump on it. They want to buy it right now because it's a good price. It's a good location. City council then proceeds to have like a big long discussion on this. Oh, first of all, Melissa Johnson decides to uh, postpone the sale of the land, like not to buy it. Well, that's a problem because the city has a contract with the seller for that expires at the end of this month. If they're going to buy this, they have to buy it like right now. So the seller is willing to give it to or sell it to the city of Stevens Point, but they're not going to wait forever. So what they do is they draft these contracts that say, hey, we'll give it to you, but you have to buy it by this date. And if you do not buy it by, what did they say, 30th, March 30th, I believe. If you don't buy it by March 30th, we're moving on. We'll find somebody else who wants to buy it. Okay. But that means they have to make a decision tonight. Like they have to do this tonight. And so already you see that some members of city council are willing to drag their feet on this, which is fine. Like if they don't want to purchase it, that's fine. This is going to cost, $2 million. So I'm perfectly fine with them either buying it and, using it for residential or whatever, or just not buying it at all. And there was a lot of council people who were perfectly happy not buying this. So, uh, David Plaisance of District 6, he didn't want to buy it. Dean Shuda didn't want to buy it. Melissa Johnson said no. And I think the other one was Keely Fischler, maybe. I think she was the other one that said no to the purchase of this. Whatever, that's fine. Doesn't matter. I don't care either way. But it does come up as a discussion point that they're not doing a good job of communicating with people. Not doing a good job communicating, huh? How about that? With people, that this is not just because they put together a conceptual plan does not mean that this is what the plan will be. For anything to be done in the city of Stevens Point, there has to be 500 meetings about it. And after all of those meetings, then they have to get all the permits together, and then they have to go to common council and get a final vote there. That's for anything to be done. So, yeah, it was just kind of like a lot of wasted discussion, just because a lot of people in town just they don't understand that that's what the deal is. That just because there's a conceptual design doesn't mean that's what the city is doing. That just means they're throwing ideas out there for people to give people a reason to buy this land. So all the reasons for buying the land was there is no more room for expansion in Stevens Point. They have to, anytime a piece of property that allows for expansion pops up, they have to jump on that and get it now. So a lot of people who were in favor of purchasing it made that argument and said, we have to grow the city, and this is one way that we can grow the city, and that makes perfect sense. It's just strategic. It has strategic value for the growth of the city. So Ryan Karnowski made that point. The mayor at one point said something along those lines. Polly Dalton, she was very vocal in saying we got to take action now on this and grab it now. So postponing the sale, and again, this annoys me, this kind of inconsistency on city council. I beg on them a lot for giving a lot of lip service to listening to the people and then not actually doing it. And like the woman who lived in the subdivision said when she came up and spoke, this is how everybody views city council. Okay. It's not just a small minority of people who were outraged about the Business 51 thing. Everybody has this general view that if you show up to city council to voice your opinion, you're just going to get ignored and they're going to do what they want anyway. But what is telling is that 3 people from this subdivision showed up and voiced some concerns about this. And Melissa Johnson was very quick to say, okay, we'll postpone this and we'll look into it a lot more. Like, I don't know if she's just doing this because she's running for mayor or what, but when you contrast this with how she acted in the whole Business 51 referendum debacle, you had 30 people, one after another, coming up in these meetings and saying, we object to what you're doing to the plan for Business 51. And this was actually a plan, by the way. Business 50, like they were getting ready to put shovels in the ground on this project, unlike the Brolowski project. And Melissa Johnson didn't say, okay, well, I think we should maybe postpone this. What did she do? She gave a 15-minute long speech thanking everybody for their hard work and how this is going to be a great thing for the city. Like, she didn't give a shit. She didn't listen to anybody. So I would personally like to see more consistency come from the city council in terms of like when they're going to stop and actually or stop moving forward on a piece of policy and actually like listen to people, and when they're not. Because right now it seems very wishy-washy. Okay. There's no consistency at all. I mean, I use Melissa Johnson. I pick on her just because, like, she kind of brought it on herself, right? The whole 15-minute speech that she gave, this pre-planned speech that she gave after all those people spoke out against Business 51 to basically prove that she wasn't listening at all. I think that warrants continual mockery, and I will continue to give it to her. She just brought that on her own head. I'm sorry, Melissa. It really is nothing personal. It really is not. But if you're going to do that and then turn around after three people say, we don't like this plan that isn't going to happen, and that's going to somehow be enough for you to change your mind, like, I'm going to call shenanigans on you, like, every single time on that. So again, city council, please be more consistent in what you're going to listen to and what you're not. This thing passed. Okay. I took a lot of notes on what everybody said, but everybody was mostly in favor of the idea of just jumping on this right now and just buying it. The only people not in favor of it were Melissa Johnson, Keely Fischler. And again, it was either Keely Fischler or Mary Kneebone, but I'm pretty sure it was Keely Fischler that voted against it. Dean Shuda and David Plassance. I got the impression that David Plassance certainly and Dean Shuda certainly just don't want to spend $1 million on something when the city budget is already facing crunches. I got the impression that that is what they were voting against. So anyway, four people, it wasn't enough. They basically overrode Melissa Johnson's motion to postpone it, and they went forward with it. So let's see. Did anybody say anything particularly interesting? Don't remember. Have to defer to my notes. Oh, okay, okay. So it was Keely Fischler. It wasn't Mary Kneebone. Mary Kneebone, she was also in favor of taking control of it too. So yeah, it was 7-4. It was 7-4 each vote. They voted to overturn, or not overturn, but to basically ignore Melissa Johnson's motion to postpone it. And then they went ahead and just jumped on it. So, so Keely Fischler, yeah, she made an excellent point about how maybe going forward. And I say it's an excellent point because I mean this is something I've said for years. So I'm absolutely 100% on board, and I'm happy that somebody who sits on city council actually made this point. Was She said, when you're going to put together, or if you're going to plan on buying these pieces of land, maybe don't put together these little conceptual plans, because that is just going to confuse everybody and think that's exactly what you're trying to do with it. So she made that point in this meeting, and I 100% agree. So maybe don't show how you could use this for a fire station and a municipal garage if you don't intend to do that. And other people said during the meeting that when they were considering possibly using this for a municipal garage, apparently what happened, I missed this meeting, but it did come up in the city council this month. When they were given the price tag on what it would cost to build a municipal garage, apparently everybody instantly just said, no, we're not doing this because it's going to be way too expensive. So there is no plan on building a municipal garage anytime in the future. So again, the argument is just jump on the property, get it while we can because it's cheap, it's there, it's going to allow for expansion. What the city does with it is years into the future. But the point is now we can just have it. So, yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's a good enough argument. Again, I'm with obviously Plaisance and Shuda on not wanting to spend money, but on the other hand, I totally understand why they would want to jump on this. Absolutely. It makes sense. So, okay. Melissa Johnson suggested putting together some kind of assessment or some kind of conceptual design that reimagines it not as a municipal garage, but as a residential area. Okay, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, maybe do that. So, yeah. And again, my other note here while I'm watching this is just, how do three people show up and just change Melissa Johnson's mind on something? But, 30 people showing up just doesn't matter to her. Again, like I just don't understand that at all. Um, so postponing was voted against, and then the motion to approve was voted against, all by the same people. So everybody was definitely 7 people out of 11 were definitely in favor of purchasing the land. So that has gone through. That has passed now. So those parcels, the ones off of Old 18 and Brulowski, all that field over there, I think there's a billboard over there. Um, it's about all that's there. That is all going to be acquired by the city and used for future expansion. So great. But it was a big controversy, and it took up most of the meeting just to talk about that one thing. But again, it was a fruitful discussion because a lot of people talked about, maybe not including conceptual plans like Healy Fischler said. But I am going to tell you that when you don't do that and you just say you want to purchase a piece of land, you're going to see this in the future, by the way, because uh, Melissa Johnson and Keely Fischler and maybe some other people did bring this up. So watch and mark my words, because this is going to happen. The next time the city wants to purchase a piece of land, they will take this under advisement and they won't provide um, any designs or any ideas or anything like that. They're just going to say, we want to purchase this piece of land. This is what's going to happen. People are going to show up and they're going to be like, well, what do you want it for? Well, why do you intend to buy this? What are you going to use it for? And they're going to start making all kinds of assumptions based on what they think maybe the city government wants to do with it. And that is also not going to be very fruitful. So it's a no-win situation for city council. They're people are going to object no matter what. Well, I mean, I guess that's true of everything that they do anyway, but maybe it will have less objection going forward if the city doesn't include some kind of plan. So that might be something to look forward to. So the people who live in the subdivision, like if any of you see this, just pay attention. Pay attention going forward and just look at the agendas and see if these parcels ever come up in the future. Again, it'll be years down the road before they do anything with this anyway, but yeah, try to stay on top of it and get a park in there, or, more houses, or whatever it is that you want, whatever it is you think it should be used for, because it's city property now. Now it's all collectively owned. Now we all get a say in what happens to that. But once you turn it over to a developer, then it's out of your hands. So yeah, pay attention to that. The rest of it is mostly is not really anything that I think anybody is really interested in. It's just approving permits and approving costs. So, $140,000 for pothole filling, $83,000 for gutter and sidewalk repair, just general city maintenance expenses that they do have to approve. There was one other big thing that I want to talk about. Your water bills are going up. Okay. Get ready for that. So already they have approved a $5 a month increase just in the stormwater expenses on your water bill. What that amounts to is a 22% increase over the next 2 years, so 11% per year. Yikes. I mean, that's a big that's I now, to be fair though, the stormwater expense on your water bill, I believe it's the smallest expense. So like, I don't think you're paying too much as it is. I have to go back and look at my water bills. Gosh, I don't ever look at them. I just write the check and send them out, but I guess I should pay more attention to that. So the next water bill I'll look at that. But I'm pretty sure that's the smallest expense on the bill. But increasing it by 22%, that's a chunk. That's a big chunk. And they said it amounts to about $5 a month. All right. I think most of us can handle that, but still, it still sucks anytime price increases on anything. But this is the world we live in now. Like prices are going up on everything. And by the way, guys, it's not going back down. It will keep going up. So, you know, do what you can to hedge against inflation in any way you can. The city's feeling the effects. It's going to go up. Your water bill and sewage treatment expenses will also be going up, but I guess that's more of a process. Like they have to get it passed through some committees and blah blah blah. Like because water and sewer are like essential public works uh what's the word I'm looking for? Like uses, whatever. It does take more of a it does take more of a process to get these increases approved, but just know that they're coming. They're coming down the pipe. I don't know how much this stuff is going up, but your water bill will be going up in the future. It will be. I'm sure it'll come up at council again. So I'll let you know when that happens. What else did they do? The only other interesting thing, yeah, like it's just changing sign ordinance rules and stuff like that. Just stuff that nobody cares about. But I guess legally they have to go through all these things. The only other thing was like the ADU. I know this did become, or this was a little controversial when it was first raised. There are some people who want to turn a detached garage into an ADU, accessory dwelling unit. That's what it means. So they basically want to turn it into like a little house for I think it was like their mother or something, or their in-laws to live. So they need a permit, obviously, to convert it, a conditional use permit. So they got that approved. So they're going to be turning that. I know initially when they first proposed it, the usual, Nancy Rappies and people like that were, just outraged and beside themselves that they would want to do this. The reason that these people are doing this is for housing for their in-laws. So it's not like, initially when they passed this thing, the big concern was that, the greedy slumlords in Stevens Point were going to start turning like campers into student housing and stuff like that, which is just it's ridiculous that the city would even approve something like that. But this is exactly the kind of use that the people who were in support of the ADUs, this is what it was for. Okay, this is exactly what these things were for. If they wanted to turn it into like a little office or something, that would have probably have been approved too, or like a little business area, given how expensive office space is right now. These are the kinds of uses that the pro ADU people were arguing for. And so this is the first one. This is the first one in the city of Stevens Point under the new ADU rules. And it's exactly as the pro ADU people said they wanted this for. So sorry, Nancy Rappy. The it your score is 0-1 on this. We'll see. Maybe you're right in the future. Maybe other people are going to do exactly what you feared was going to happen, but right now you're 0-1. Okay? So, again, on any of these issues and these rule changes, the last people you should ever listen to are the hysterics, okay? Um they're always just going to be there to assume the worst in every little policy change. Don't listen to the hysterics. That's all I can say. They're usually wrong. Um, anyway, well, that's it. And then it was conditional use permits are building duplexes off of Patch Street on Minnesota Avenue. Somebody's building a hotel in the business park. I didn't know that was happening. That's interesting. But yeah, that's about it. So that is city council this month. I will do this again next week if I have something to talk about, but there's no city meetings this week. It's the last week of the month, so they don't usually have anything going on. But if there's something to talk about, I'll jump on here and talk about it. Aside from that, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Make the most of it. Have a great time. And I will see you again next Saturday morning. And thanks for being here and watching and commenting. And I'll see you later.